Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror PSA presented by Scary Nerd, and as always, we are your hosts. I'm Paul.
I'm Saul.
And I'm Angie.
The following is a public service announcement.
A deadly entity from space crashes near a small town and starts to consume anyone in its path. Panic ensues as shady government scientists try to contain the horrific creature. That's right, we watched 1988 remake of The Blob starring Shawnee Smith and Kevin Dillon.
Yes, and welcome back to the Horror PSA. We are a weekly podcast that watches and reviews horror movies and give you tips and tricks to avoid certain doom should you end up in these situations.
Yes, we would do our best to try to do that.
There's
amongst of our shenanigans.
There's a lot of references to The Stand in this.
Oh,
like
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I got so distracted by the beautiful mullet that Kevin Dillon has in it. It's glorious. Like it's blowing in the wind.
It's nice and curly.
Yes.
It reminded
it's
me
long too. Like
it reminded me a lot of Daniel LaRusso's mom in The Karate Kid. He had the same exact hair as her. I'm like, you just got mom hair. I don't know what. How
the
can
80s
you,
were full of mom
but
hair.
how can you
Everyone
be,
had it. It was the volume is
I don't
what
know,
you needed.
Okay, I don't know how you can be a badass or like a bad boy in the 80s when you have mom hair.
Well,
exactly.
I don't know, man.
He had mommy issues, so maybe he was just trying to connect with the mom by the hair.
He didn't have his own product, so he had to use his mom's.
Yes.
And the result was it just looked like mom mullet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, his mom was never around.
Yep.
I found it funny in the scene where the cop was kind of just like, "Oh, well, your mom's not around." He's like, "Oh, I'm a broken man. I really give a shit."
Call the shrink.
Yeah, he was like, "Go ahead." I'm like that to me. I'm like, I would have been that horrible fucking kid.
Yes.
Like, oh no, I really care.
I know, that's damaged children don't care.
It really was like, oh no, like you're telling me
Yes.
something I haven't known since I was a child. That she's just a horrible mom. Okay.
Yeah.
When he was like, well, if we'd found out who your real dad is, I would have been like, I thought it was you. I'm glad that he licked him though.
Oh, what are you gonna
weird.
do? And
What are
he
you gonna
fucking
do?
licked. I was
It's
like, that's me.
I
I
was
did
like,
that a
that's-
few times to people.
Yeah.
That's back-to-back movies we had with people licking people.
You see, well, you get up in somebody's face, and I'm like, I thought he was going to kiss him. I hadn't seen this movie in forever. I remember seeing it as a kid, and I don't think it's been well over a decade.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what I
been
have
a
to
long
say
time.
is I don't like came out in '88. I don't remember how old I was, but I was probably under 12 years old. So this came back and it unlocked a whole bunch of like memories from being a kid. Mm-hmm. Because it just reminded me of some little things. Because you see the blob and immediately you think of the other pink slime.
Yeah, from Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, especially when they show it in the asteroid.
Yeah.
What we come to find out was, the
Oh
asteroid,
yeah,
quote
the
unquote.
quote unquote.
It reminds you
yeah.
so much of that. And then being
The way it moves too.
Yeah,
It's
being a
so
kid-
reminiscent of that.
Because that's one thing I used to remember is we used to have, what is it? Paul, you remember when we were kids, we had the weird, it wasn't Play-Doh, but it was like a weird clear gel or whatever need be. They came like in a jar.
Putty stuff.
Not necessarily putty, but kind of, it was,
Like
it
the
looked more like
slime stuff.
Yeah, there you go, slime.
Slime stuff.
I remember I used to have some of that, and I had pink stuff, and I used to play that as my blob with my G.I. Joes, and it would consume them and do that.
See, the government official had to come in. G.I. Joe versus the Blob.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a
what I did.
crossover we need.
I don't remember seeing this as a kid, and I'm sure I did because I'm sure it was on TV just, in the background, but it was always like, oh, it's a remake of the other one. Because I remember the original Blob more than I
don't think
remember
I ever
this.
watched
I don't
the
think
original.
I've ever seen the original from beginning to end.
Yeah, see, when I was
seen parts.
when I was a nerdy little kid, they used to play black and white horror movies on some like local
Okay.
TV station.
you
and
did grow up in Iowa.
Yeah, so like I grew up like Them, I think it was called, with the ants. Like, yeah, I remember that. Like,
Yes.
yeah, so I got into the old 50s style early on.
The big bunny one. What was the big bunny one?
I don't remember,
remember
but
that
yeah.
Something, the Night of the Lupus or something like
Yes,
that.
Something like
that.
that. Yeah, but that's where I had seen the original Blob before this one, and so this one I'm just like, that is horrible green screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing about this movie that I'm like, everything is so like, I mean, it's 80s and you can forgive some of them, but even in the 80s, I'm like, thinking back when I was a kid, I'm like, it looked bad back then.
Yeah.
To me. Like, it was just that whole, there's a scene at the end, like after after that whole scene where Kevin Dillon's character, whose name is Flag, by the way.
Yes,
another
Flag, yeah.
Stand reference.
I thought his name was Flag until the end when she was like Brian. I was like, who the fuck's Brian? Is that a brother?
It's Brian Flag, apparently. Yeah. But yeah, like after the whole scene where he has the gun standoff and he's like, they're lying to you and all this and that. And then when the blob comes out of the sewer and all that, there's a scene where it's like it's almost like if they were trying to mock like those old like Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene where Kevin Dillon runs and it's like he stops in the middle of the screen and it's got like that where you can tell it's like behind and like all that just horrible visual effects or whatever. So he runs and he stops mid-frame and like turns and looks up and then runs off again. And I'm like, that is like the same cliche, like cheesy looking, like, huge monster movie kind of thing that you would see. Like it reminded me of that scene in the Austin Powers where they're mocking the Godzilla thing and the guys like they run and stop and then have that conversation and then run off the camera. I'm like, that's exactly what you guys did there. Like, but were you trying to like poke fun of that? Because I can't tell in this movie because it's 80s-ified.
Yeah, it is very 80s-fied. So yeah, maybe if they were going for satire, we just missed it completely.
I know, like and I would love to if we could ever talk to Frank Darabont about this and then many other things.
Many questions, yes.
But yeah, I'm like, I don't know what they were going for. Maybe it was like a spoof of those old movies.
I will say that I love that Scott got eaten by the blob because that fucker, he totally threw his friend under the bus when he was like, go buy me condoms.
Yeah. That's the thing that I forgot about this movie is now that we're older and we go back and watch it, they did a lot of things that movies don't do and you're like, wow, I wish more movies would do that. Because they make, what's his face, the main character they make you think is Paul. He's like, okay, and he dies.
Very early on.
Yeah.
I had a note because the picture on Amazon, when you go to look at this on Amazon, is of Paul when he's taken by it. And it totally, I'm like, that's Bill Hader making a weird face to me. Like, that's what I see every time.
But they have that. And then the other thing that I completely forgot about is they kill one of the freaking kids. Like, you never see that.
His friend? Yeah.
The friend falls into the sewer.
Into the sewer, and Meg goes after her. She tries to go after him. She goes under the water.
What are you going to do?
I don't know. I was like, Meg, don't, girl,
okay,
no.
because this was after that they crawled down there and the blob had already like strung out and like grabbed her hair and was like burning it and everything. Because the thing that I read is Darabont and I don't know if it was the director that also like co-wrote it with Darabont, but they wanted it to be like an inside-out stomach. So everything that it touched was like acid, so it would basically just dissolve and start eating stuff on contact. So what the fuck was she gonna do underwater with this big, basically stomach blob that's melting everything?
But because of the remake of It, we now know what brown water is, and that's what they were freaking wading around.
No, I said
y'all didn't know what gray water was before.
No, I was when we watched the movie, I was like, oh, straight from burnt hair to being completely submerged into the shit water.
Into shit water.
Like, you need to go get a few shots after that because
anytime, even when I was a little kid, like you see those movies where they're just like diving into the sewer water and I'm like, no bitch, no, don't get your face in there. No.
When they get to that point where they're going to that other room where the blob comes and attacks them and they're like the rats are just floating there. I'm like, I was like, at first I'm like, that rat is just floating on a huge turd right
yes,
now.
exactly.
Like, don't go into that water, please. Like when it starts getting up to their neck, I'm like, oh God, no.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
too close to
keep
me.
it from your face.
It's like
keep
that rat might be floating on a log, but it's a different type of log.
Darabont likes those kind of movies though. I mean, think Shawshank Redemption. He climbed through the hole.
Some sort of weird poop fetish.
I don't know. Just keep it away from your face.
But again, what's the one thing I always say about movies and football games that I noticed again?
Yeah, it was a football game. It was like a weird evening that it wasn't like night. Like I don't know, it was like during the day, but it wasn't like,
Did anybody else like these people have a problem? Like if like the whole town is a fucking ghost town because y'all are watching football, that's weird.
Well, that was the weird thing because it's like it's kind of a small town. But then they're expecting a bunch of tourists for like winter and like snow and like to come like skiing or whatever. So I'm like, they're kind of a small town, but they're not.
That they have this random local teen just getting drunk in the middle of the day that's trying to jump shit on his dirt bike. You know the type.
So was it supposed to be a college football game? Because like
No, I think they're definitely in high school. But
because
but
they
I'm
had the
just saying,
Wisconsin thing and they mentioned them as Wisconsin.
Well,
so
I think I don't know what the town's name was.
Yeah.
But
I
it was
don't
probably. I know
remember.
they were the Huskies, and they were playing the Wildcats, and that's as far as I got.
When
with their town.
when they go and you see the cheerleaders for the first time, like they are giving it their all. They are dancing.
Oh,
I'm like,
I-
Jesus, calm down, guys.
I
This
wrote
was a
down,
football
I'm
game.
like, that is some fucking late 80s, early 90s hairdos in there.
Oh yeah,
I'm like,
the
that.
Aquanet just flowing
Yes.
through that shit, man.
I'm like, if I went back to my fucking, like yearbooks from those years of like junior high, I'm like, yeah, those hairdos are prevalent, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Those
the
fucking,
thing that I found funny when you bring that up is I remember years ago I used to have a coworker who wouldn't let the 90s go. So every time she would show up to work, she'd have the big 80s hair. I'm like, somebody needs to break it to her easy or nicely. But then again, I'm enjoying this because she has no idea that she way past the 90s.
hey man, if you're gonna rock it, you might as well go full force
don't-
and just rock it, man.
It's funny that you say that because anytime I've ever had a coworker like that or like somebody I've known like in school or whatever, some girls I was like, girl, you need to get your hair fixed. Like they don't ever let it go. Like
No,
like,
they don't.
That is an old hairdo. You need to
And
get
that's
a new
what it was. So
hairstyle.
this was probably when I was in my early 20s, and she was probably probably about the age we are now. So she still thought she was in her heyday, and she still thought she looked cool. But
I
I'm
just
like,
never understood. I'm like, I don't even want to stand up that hard. I'm not going to make my hair stand up that hard.
I know, like how much effort goes into that?
Because
to make
Yeah.
here's the thing that made it even funnier, because she would start off the shift with a big poofy hair.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of an 8-hour shift, it's like, what happened to your hair? It looks all sad now. It's not standing up, and it's
Exactly.
not all. Yeah.
Aquanet isn't what it used to be.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. They made him take out all those
Yeah,
chemicals
there's,
that were
they're
killing
like,
people.
There is way too much stuff in here. Please,
So
need
that
to
was
regulate Aquanet.
That's the thing that was funny, because at the end of the day, you would be like, man, the day really hit you when your hair does not look like. You're like,
There's no point in it.
yeah.
You put all that effort into it to just look like you went back to the 80s. Like, I don't see the point.
And I do have a question. Why in the 80s, or maybe this is just an American thing? I don't know, but why did it was always the old alcoholic drunks or the bums or somebody like that, or the old men with the dogs who had to find the aliens first?
like,
Why couldn't it just be a normal person?
It really is. Like in a lot of the 80s movies, I'm like, why was there always like a lovable bum? Like,
Yes.
a
Maybe
lovable bum.
Maybe
Like,
it's a trope because it used to be a thing because of all the old wars, so like Vietnam and
I don't
stuff.
know,
So,
maybe-
and when they're just not around anymore, and that's why we
yes.
don't see them.
See, I don't know. Even in the 80s, I'm like, why are you going to trust this dude? I don't know.
Yeah,
this
because
dude.
they-
I know. Well, we grew up on Unsolved Mysteries, though. We know not to trust fucking
Yes.
nobody.
Well, we were smarter than our fucking parents. And
Oh, yeah.
like, oh, look
Well,
at
and
this.
our friends apparently, because there were a lot of Unsolved Mysteries.
Yep, apparently. They're like, hey, just hang out with this nice homeless
We are
man.
the ones that made it.
I love that the bum. Does he have a name? Does he ever have
I
a
don't
name?
think
He's homeless
so.
guy. Oh, you know what it is? Another stand reference. He was trash can guy. Is what his credit was. Trash can
Trash
guy.
can guy. I love how all the bums usually come with a pet.
Yeah,
You
they
have-
do.
They
Yeah.
always have a dog.
Yeah, I don't know. There were no lovable bums in my neighborhood, so I was always like, yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I think
Stay
the
away from
pet
that
thing
guy.
comes from like the old hobo era. Like,
It really is like that, just generic, like image of a bum. Like, oh, he's a bum with
Yeah.
a stick and the handkerchief and a dog
I
and
love
a can of
though,
beans.
after he has the thing on his hand, I just wrote "bum runs into the road" and everyone starts freaking the fuck out. They're
Because
all
doesn't one of
screaming
them-
at each
well,
other.
One of them hits him. What
Yeah,
was
with
it?
the car.
Yeah, with the car.
Brian,
It was
or no, Paul. Yeah,
Paul
Paul
and-
hits him with the car.
Paul and Meg are on their date.
But
after
Paul
the whole-
sees a flag and he's like, "What the fuck do you do to this bum?"
Yeah.
Well, I think they were really trying to play up the fact that like Flag was supposed to be like the bad boy delinquent in town.
I guess everybody just fucking shit on him the whole time.
Well, because even earlier they had that scene where after he wrecks his bike and he goes into town or whatever.
What was his point of
and,
doing that, though?
I don't know what the fuck. He was
just
just
wanted to
drunk.
jump
He
it.
kept going back and forth, and then finally he musters up the courage to do it, and he bails right before he.
His bike started sputtering, so
that's what it was.
he wasn't
That's what
going
it
to
was.
make it. So
Yeah.
that's why he tried to stop and like wiped out or whatever.
Like I
But
said, there was just a random teen in the middle of the
yeah, because even
trying to jump shit with his bike.
even the sheriff, as Jeffrey DeMond, was like, "Oh, you're having a birthday. You're in the big leagues now. I'm going to take you to the big house if you fuck up now."
Now I can just put you away forever instead of trying to help you become a better person.
Yeah. You will no longer be a problem. You'll just be in jail.
You'll just be in jail. You'll be the government's problem then.
Yes.
There's a new band out tonight. It's supposed to be pretty good.
So we get the whole thing of where they're all freaking out because they hit the poor bum. And then Paul does the good guy thing and says, okay, let's take him to the hospital. Because
But he forces Flag to go with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
He's like, get in the fucking car.
They have that. They have that like macho like shoulder bump. Like, get in the car. They're gonna want to know.
I love how Shawnee's just like, are you guys fucking finished?
Are you guys
Like,
done? This
are you
man's
done?
dying in the back.
This dude literally has some shit on his hands.
Just get in the car.
And nobody else is concerned. Even the people
Yeah.
at the hospital.
I
Like
know,
the
the
fucking
fucking-
nurse is like, just a minute.
Just a minute. Does he have Blue Cross? Like bitch, like fuck. I hit a bum. I don't
It's
know
a
what
bum.
he has.
I don't
Yes.
know. I said, I hit this man and you were asking me personal questions
I
about him.
don't know him, bitch.
No, I love how she's like, you're going to have to fill this out. Fill out what? What do you want
I
me
don't
to fill
own
out
him.
for him?
I don't know him. He does not belong to me. I ain't filling shit out.
Oy.
What I would have told her.
every
Like, yeah.
time in movies, like when everybody goes to the hospital, it's like you have to fill out a form. It takes me back to what is it? I think it's Menace to Society where they show up with the dude who's all shot and bleeding everywhere. It was like, bitch, do I need a fucking form? Look at him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly what it is like
Yeah,
nowadays.
there's some foreign substance on his hand.
Yeah.
If you guys could, take care of that, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and they don't even look at him. They just
Well,
put him
see,
in a
they-
bed in
well,
the
see,
hospital.
this is,
They just put him in that room.
This is how small of a town it was then, because it's like, well, the doctor's with somebody.
The one
it's gonna be a
doctor we
while.
have.
He's like, you need to
He's
wait.
talking to some lady about something right
And
now.
why in the middle of the night is some lady getting her results right then? Like,
know,
isn't there
right.
a better time in
On
the
a
day
Friday,
for
on
this?
a Friday night or
Yeah.
something that it was. Yeah, because that's
Well,
right.
the doctor was at the football game earlier, so he had
That's
to
right.
push this back.
We're doing the football game during the day so we can all work this night.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was like in the Crazies in the remake where they're all at the baseball game.
Yeah.
But yeah, the blob eats Paul quick. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he just like it falls down from the ceiling after it jizzes all over him for a minute.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing too. Is like, what is it? He reaches for Meg, and then she just kind of pulls back with both of his arms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again, like I said earlier, that's the one thing that you don't expect because again, they make you think, okay, Paul's going to be the antagonist in this movie,
Yeah.
and he's not the antagonist, the protagonist in this movie, and he's gonna be the one that saves the day. But it's like, holy shit, they killed him off within what, the first 20 minutes?
Yeah, I think that Darabont and the director, when they were deciding, they kind of want to throw anyone that saw the original off, because
Yeah.
I think in the original the sheriff plays a lot bigger role.
Yeah.
And they kind of kill him early too, and they don't even show his death. So I mean, he doesn't
Yeah.
even really get a death. You just see him
His
like-
head, yeah.
You just see. Well, he does have that cool wink though. He kind of like, oh, and he winks a little when she's in the phone booth or whatever.
Yeah.
That phone booth death was actually really cool.
Yeah.
'Cause you,
Yeah, I
you
thought it
knew,
was
you knew it
cool.
was coming. It's like, how much longer is she going to be able to protect herself?
Yeah, the deaths were really cool. Interesting note on the when Paul dies and Meg is there. When you have that one shot to where you said like it's pulling, like
The skin,
pulling on his
yeah.
face or whatever. She didn't know that it was going to actually be the actor in there because they did like a full body like double casting of the actor that played Paul. And so they knew that it was going to be like, just the body inside the blob or whatever.
Yeah.
But they surprised her with that because she didn't know that it was going to be the actual person for that iconic scene to where it's like pulling back his face and all that. So her reaction to that was actual genuine because she thought it was just going to be like a dummy or whatever.
See, I like when they do that because, again, you can tell everybody, oh, do this, but I think when you record or when you actually get a genuine reaction of somebody,
Yeah.
it makes it that much better because it's actual true emotion rather than trying to act that
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah, but Vicky passes out. Well, she hits her head when she pulls Paul's arms off.
Yes.
And then
That's
nobody
Meg.
That's Meg.
What did I say?
You said Vicky.
Vicky is the other girl.
Vicky is Erica
Yes,
Eleniak,
that's right.
Who's
I was
with
looking
Scott?
at my
Is it
notes
Scott?
and got mixed up. Yes, Scott.
Bastard.
The
Yeah,
douche
that-
Scott. who tries to take advantage of Vicky.
Scotty.
I liked Vicky's death, though. I liked a lot of the deaths where they seem to have like hollowed out the human,
Yeah.
and then like they just implode, kind of a thing.
Yeah. So
Well,
this,
Scott deserved his death because
He did.
he was
this
just
is
a
what
creeper.
happens. This is what happens when you grab onto people's titties when they're passed out.
Yes.
The blob is going to eat you.
Consent, and if they're passed out, they cannot give consent, kids.
A horror PSA for that one.
Again, the slime ball thing about him is what he goes to his trunk and he has like a whole bar set up. In the
Okay,
back.
he had one bottle of vodka and the rest were mixers.
Yeah,
but
and-
then I saw you remember the old cans of Hawaiian Punch that used to
Yeah.
come in the big
Oh,
can?
yeah.
He had one of those in the trunk, and I'm like, then why are you using fucking grenadine?
I know, it was just
Like,
grenadine
you have
and
that-
vodka.
Grenadine and vodka and he had that little stir thing. I'm like, who the fuck is this 19-year-old, 18-year-old
Yeah.
high school guy that's like, I'm not gonna have sex. It's my friend. Like anyone in this small town knows who you are, Scott.
Yeah.
Maybe the stupid preacher guy and the pharmacist guy. Like, come on, you know everyone in this town.
Yeah, you know Scotty's a douche.
This town is small enough that you only have one fucking doctor. You know who these stupid kids are.
Yes.
You know he was lying.
That's what he gets though. Because what he gets back in there and he's like, oh, and you know she's dead, and you're wondering, okay, how are they going to play this off? And he keeps asking all these questions like, oh, it looks like you're hot. Let's
Just
do
a little
this.
hot in here. I'm gonna button that for you.
Nope, you could eat in Scott.
That's what happens. You jerk.
Douche.
Scotty didn't know.
And I think
Scotty
that's
shoulda known.
is that time the military starts showing up is after his death, or was that a little bit later? I forget.
I think it was a little bit after that because then I think that's after Kevin Dillon's character gets released from jail or whatever.
Yeah, after he licks the cop. Yep.
Well, isn't that they're trying to figure out who's making the killings because they're like, oh, our suspect is right here because they're pulling.
Well, yeah. Well, they already had a boner for him to, pin it on him no matter what. But then the fact that I think when Paul called the sheriff and he was talking to him, and he's like, I'm here with Meg and
Flag was here.
Flag was
earlier.
here.
Yeah.
And he was like, Flag, go with Flag. And then he gets eaten. So it was like he does nothing to go off of except like, Flag's involved. He probably did something stupid.
So did the blob eat everybody else in the hospital? I'm taking it as
I
probably.
assume.
I assume so because you really didn't see anyone come out like afterwards when they were outside and when they pull up in the car with Flag, like they went and found him or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, they come and get Meg, and her parents come and get her, and I love how they're like, it's okay, your boyfriend's dead. Take the sleeping pill, go to sleep.
No, it was like the fucking the mom and dad arguing. I'm like, what is the dad mad about? Like, I get that you're upset that something weird happened, you don't know, and like you're kind of just afraid your child was out in danger happened.
Yeah.
And then they don't know where her brother is. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
where's
I'm
your
like,
brother?
Yeah.
she's somewhere. I don't
He's
know.
with his friend. No,
They did the whole, oh, he's sleeping over at, what is it?
He's
That-
sleeping at Eddie's house. What?
sleeping
He told me he was sleeping at your house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And they go watch what the scary movie, which I love because they're sitting there.
about the landscaper.
He was the hedge trimmer.
Yeah.
hedge trimmer.
Wait a minute, hockey season ended months ago.
The thing that cracked me up about that is that they're sitting there, and again, we've all been in theaters, but it's been a while. But I don't get how in movies they're always lit up the way they're lit up, because you go in there and then they're dark,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, you can still see everything that's going on. But I do love how they told that dude in front of him to shut the hell up because they're trying to watch the movie.
Now that guy behind him, yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
then he turns around, and then the guy gets eaten by the blob.
Look, I'm gonna get him right here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, again, like you said, the deaths were cool because the guy up in the projection booth, he's like, "There's no air in here."
I will always remember that guy from the projectionist guy. He will always just be the. Is he the cousin of the one guy in Oh Brother Where Art Thou? He's like Hogwallop, Hogwaller, whatever. It's like.
He gets a cool death, and then the other person goes up there and he sees pretty much what happened to him, and he gets a cool death.
Yeah, it's I really enjoyed the deaths in this. The shitty visual effects and like the crappy like overlays or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call them are terrible looking. But yeah, all the deaths were really good. I think when Fran dies in the phone booth and like how everything just collapses, it just like fucking smashes. I mean, I'm assuming it was like a doll or whatever they had.
Yeah.
Like, it just smashes like the head off real quick, and I'm like, this is a pretty cool death.
Because the thing that I like about that is because you start thinking, okay, what happened to the sheriff? Because like, sheriff should be coming out of somewhere.
Yeah, you
somewhere to help him.
kind of get that false sense of like,
Yeah.
oh, he's gonna come save her. Like, yeah, like.
And then all of a sudden, they're like, you see him.
Oh, when she finally gets on the phone, she's
Yeah.
like, The sheriff, he's
Oh,
down
he
at the-
went down to the
he's down
diner.
at the diner. And he's like,
And you see him poor Jeffrey Dumont doesn't get you don't see his death, but you see that cool thing because he just kind of flashes.
It's just his
and
head.
he has like a little, he has like winks a little. I don't know if he just blinks or whatever.
I really
like he
enjoy
does.
when the sink eats the guy.
No,
Yeah, that was pretty comical. So
I loved it.
The deaths were either good and gory or they were just fun to watch in this movie.
yeah.
I dug it. I love the whole scene because after Flag and Meg have they're carrying around this hook or something, and I'm like, what
Yeah.
is that gonna do? It
I
is
know, like,
goo,
what is
man.
what are you gonna do?
What's the
Like,
point?
That meat hook or whatever, like, is that gonna like you're
It's
gonna
not gonna
poke
do
it? Like,
anything.
what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Like you had a better shot of surviving if you grabbed like frozen food out of there, like like a fucking bag of hot dogs or something. You just threw it at the
bag of
thing.
hot
Like,
dogs.
Start chucking tater tots.
hey,
at
there
him.
was a box of corn dogs right behind them in
There
that thing.
was.
They could have just one corn dog at a time and like make the thing back away because of the cold.
I love how as soon as it touched the ice, it was like, no. Yeah. I really dug like how sometimes it had noise, sometimes it did not.
It was like, oh, fuck this.
Yep. And then Dr. Meadows arrives. Dr. Meadows.
I've been preparing this for my whole
The
life.
thing that cracked me up about Dr. Meadows was when he first showed up. It was like it's a poor man's Morgan Freeman voice.
It is. It's the Blue Boy Group.
Because I immediately heard, I'm like, I know it's not him, but it sounds like a poor man's Morgan Freeman.
Yep. John Seneca
Yes,
is who portrays him. Dr. Meadows.
and he plays off the whole.
I love how they get right into it. He's like, "No, I'm not.
I'm
you're
not
not.
bad."
You're not my prisoners. You're my patients." But get in this fucking truck right now.
Get in this armor.
Well, this is okay. We're leaving. I was like, no, you're getting in the truck, and then they pull out the
It's a
guns on
lovely
him.
night for a walk.
You don't know who they are. They could be NASA, CIA, or the Royal Canadian Mounties. I'm like, what?
You couldn't.
I'm not just that high that I heard that, right? He just said that?
I don't know where they were supposed to be in California. I'm pretty sure.
I think so. I don't remember.
Because I think when they send the body off after the hospital, I'm pretty sure the sheriff was like, "Get that to Sacramento right now. I want the autopsy results like tonight or whatever."
Not
So,
next
like,
week.
So they're in northernish California, I think somewhere. But
Somewhere
I'm
around
like,
there,
yeah, it's just.
Well, if
It's
it's a
just
germ,
weird.
it's the biggest son of a bitch you've ever seen.
So why would you think the fucking Canadian Mounties were coming
Do
to
not know.
your small
The
shit
Flag
town?
just had
Like,
he had none of his words made sense.
He didn't have a dad to give him
He
cool
didn't.
catchphrases. All right, that's the
Like-
problem. All right, we had to get. He's like,
But I wanted people to call him out. Be like, the Royal Canadian Mountie? What are you talking
Like,
about?
wait, what?
I know, but the only thing that Meg would be like, you just worry about yourself. Look, everyone expects you to. Like, no
Nobody
one
else
volunteered
did.
for the job.
Nobody worries
I don't
about
have
me.
a dad who teach me cool catchphrases.
My mom's drunk over there
I
somewhere.
don't even know where my mom is.
The thing that was funny too is how he broke out of the back of that truck because he's sitting there. He's like, "All right, we're going," and he just jumps and he rolls off.
Yeah. So let that be a horror piece. Just have a ratchet apparently in your fucking in your jacket pocket, and you'll be able to break out of whatever.
Yeah. I
fucking roll.
wrote.
And apparently, there's no fucking communication between these government officials because they get to the town, they open it, and she just gets out. No one's like, "Where's the other
Wait,
guy?"
it was like,
Yeah.
didn't we put two of you guys in here?
No,
Where's
they
the
just
other one?
opened it and they're like, "All right, just go over
Yeah,
there.
just get out."
Get in line. Get in line."
I love there's this one scene, and I don't remember where it was coming out of, but when the blob comes out of the door, it reminds me of when the cranberry jelly slides out of the can on Thanksgiving. It's just like, so
it's,
satisfactory.
I think you're talking about the movie theater when they
yeah.
bust out of that door. They have to get the brother's jacket off, and then they run, and then it just goes like right out of the fucking door.
I'm like, it's cranberry jelly.
I'm like,
sauce,
you can
Sam.
clearly see that some of these shots are just gravity.
Yeah.
With their playing with the blob shit or whatever, and it's like the scene where the guy dies in the sink and then it just shoots out of the sink, how it all just goes straight up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can clearly see that's just gravity, and they just flip it over. It's like,
You just flip the scene. Oh, and you gotta love the foreshadowing, how we come back and he has to make the jump now.
Yeah.
yeah,
His bike has to be fixed enough
This-
to make the jump.
this one thing that you thought was a meaningless scene is going
Yeah.
to come into play now.
He has
Which
to do
they
it.
actually filmed that fucking scene in everything in camera. So the guy, the stunt double, actually did the jump. There was the helicopter actually flying over at the same time they did that jump.
Holy
like
shit.
they did that whole fucking stunt scene like in camera. And I guess
Damn.
the IMDb trivia said that when the bike landed, like both tires just fucking burst.
I bet.
And the guy had to like try and like balance it, you know, and like I mean he falls anyway, but
Yeah.
it's part of the scene. But like, yeah, I'm like that was actually a pretty crazy stunt to just pull off, you know, and do it all at the
Yeah.
same time and get it all in one take.
Poor stunt doubles.
Yeah.
Back then, it was like, hey,
don't care if
can
you die.
somebody do this? Because we don't have anyone to do it. It wasn't even like a stunt double thing back then. You know,
No,
it was
it's like, hey, grip guy, can you do
just,
this?
hey, does anyone want an extra $50? And we'll just like, can you ride a motorcycle? Yeah, okay, come with
You
us.
want
It's
a
like,
stunt credit?
sign this waiver because it's not responsible what happens to you. Broken legs, broken arms, so be.
But you did the jump, man.
You made it. I like how at the end when the blob is really blobby, but it also kind of has like lots of penises coming out and taking everybody. I was like, what are these weird tentacly penis things? Like it literally like penetrates the fire gun at the end and blows it up.
The end of this movie always
Wait, whoa. Did you just call that a fire gun?
I don't remember what it's called.
Goddamn flamethrower.
Yes,
Flamethrower.
It literally is throwing flames from the barrel.
Well, the blob penetrates it with its penis and it explodes it.
The one thing I was going to say is this
Barrel fucker.
The end of this movie always takes me back to the end of
Titanic.
no Monster Squad, because you have the pretty much the whole town,
The Virgin
yeah.
and all that.
You have the whole town in one area. You have the Blob in one area,
Yeah.
and it just kind of reminds me of that, where everybody's trying to figure out how to beat it and whatnot, and then you finally get the snowmaker or whatever need be.
I know, what was the name of that? I forgot to write that down. Like it was like the something maker, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was either, but I was
had
just
a
like,
name for it.
this is the dumbest way.
To beat something.
It would not work. There would be so many tiny little pieces. There'd be no way to collect it all.
Well, it was all there on the floor. Man.
I
That's
don't
what I'm
know.
saying. Okay, this,
If it's in the like, okay, so when they explode that thing, right? There's snow everywhere. It's coming down. So that shit like went up in everywhere.
no. See, here's what I took it as. Like the I don't know if it's CO2 or whatever the fuck that was in.
Yeah,
that
that's what I
truck,
took
right?
it as. Yeah.
That exploded, and when things explode, they explode in all directions. So obviously, a bunch of that's going to go up, and then it creates snow to come back down. So I don't think the blob actually exploded as so much as it just instantly froze and then fractured into all those little cubes that they had at the end.
Okay, and I agree with that, but the force of the stuff exploding would carry it, because if it's on contact, right, as it explodes and expands, it's going to move. So there's going to be little pieces of the blob that goes along with the CO
I don't know,
that's
man.
going
I
into
don't
the
know.
atmosphere.
I don't know. There's no. We don't have
We
a
don't know the science
scientist
to it.
Yeah,
to explain.
see, I'm
See,
like, nope,
we
this would
need,
not work. It would
we
be
need
way
the-
too many pieces. You wouldn't be
we
able to
need
contain it.
Dr. Meadows and the Blue Boy group to explain
do.
the viscosity and thermal breakdowns
Yes.
of the blob.
I need this. I mean, like, it would just be like little pieces, like the stupid preacher or whatever has at the end that he collected.
Why does he get all creepy at the end?
I don't know.
understand.
I'm
It's
like, you're still a priest. Why did you move to this weird
I know,
tent
like,
in the
why
middle
did
of
you
nowhere?
just leave? And like, I'm like, you're in like the middle of America now. Like, you left California, and it looks like you're in the middle of Kansas or some shit.
In the 1950s
And just-
now.
and just
Like,
a
what are you
tent-
doing?
Like, like even in the late 80s, who the fuck was going to church in a tent somewhere?
I don't know.
Like that to me, it's like this is a traveling like
That's how televangelists start.
like this is a traveling like con job in a tent. Like, look at these things.
Snake oil salesman.
Yeah, like literally, like. But then at the same time, I'm like, that kind of would have made a cool fucking sequel if you follow this guy and he's just for some reason crazy, or maybe the blob is taking over his brain. I mean, who knows? Like, you could have gone
Maybe.
anywhere. This is like a stuff
Could.
thing happening.
I do have to mention one of the cheesier things about the movie is when Meg went to the top of that one tanker. And when she tripped and her,
Yes.
well, the one that
Her foot gets caught.
her
Yeah.
foot gets caught. It's like just wiggle your foot, and she for her life of her could
I'm like-
not get loose.
I love it how like she goes down hard
Yeah.
around that track when she falls. Like her whole body's like, "Poof."
just like a little her little ledge that her foot's stuck on, and it's like, what is your foot caught on?
the strap or
It
some
was like
shit.
a tube or a strap or something that was just running along the.
It's
the
like you can
thing.
like, come on, really? You're struggling this much with it?
You know, like just lift your foot up, or or moving. Like I know, like it's holding you, or whatever.
And all
but
the
you could've done
time, like
something.
the spaghetti, sometimes penises, sometimes giant tongue blob was coming at her. I love how, like you were talking about that scene earlier where when it comes out of the sewers and everything, like they look around and it's all like they've got the vibrations because something's coming up. I'm like, is it like banging around underneath? You know, like it's
what?
goo. How
what
is it
is it?
going to
It's
cause
just
all
going-
that? Like, yeah.
It's just bouncing off the walls.
Now
literally,
it's
like,
pissed.
boom, boom.
And
That was funny is because what? They shot into the
they
manhole.
shot into the sewer. And I'm like,
then they
what
threw-
are you doing?
And then they threw the bomb, and then they have that line where it was like, "Oh, you pissed it off now. It's mad."
Yeah.
I know, like, why didn't that? Okay, either that bomb wasn't very strong, or what was the point to me? Because I'm like, the bomb would have exploded the street to me. I would think,
Yeah.
and, like it would just
Yeah.
been like a cave in and then whatever. But I'm like, nope, nothing happened. Like it just some smoke came out and then you pissed it off.
Yeah, I really like though when it takes Dr. Meadows because he's even trying to keep it like
Yeah.
contained the whole time. But I like when it just fills his fucking suit
Yeah.
and then it breaks the gun and then it takes him into the. I like that because it's like harsh and brutal at the same time.
You're
And
like,
it's
yeah, that's
fast.
what you get, fucker.
Whoops!
Yeah.
You wanted to keep it alive, Doc.
Good thing we contained it in the sewer here, huh?
So when we get the reveal that it was actually a government ploy or a government, what is it, experiment or whatever it need be.
It was it was a virus that they sent up into space,
and then
to
it
see
mutated
how it would affect the and
the
apparently
bacteria or some shit.
It mutated into an external stomach that just eats.
It just eats and eats and eats, and it's gonna put military years ahead of any other nation.
Well, okay, but think about this though. You have that as a weapon. You just throw that somewhere and just let it eat. Like no one's gonna be able to stop that shit.
Unless you know how to.
But even the other guy who was like, I have to say that this is not right. So it was like, there could be no nations if this thing just gets out.
I
was
thought it was funny that Meadows was like, "That's my cross to bear. Like these people can die, so the rest of us can live, and I have to live with that, not you. Like you're not in charge."
Do you have to live with that? I don't know. I mean, like, it doesn't seem like you really care.
Yeah.
Well, they were looking out for their millions of dollars of chemical or biological warfare.
I did love his lines. She's like, I've been preparing for this my whole life. Like, what? What if you were a weird kid then? Fucking sure is what all
So
I'm
you've been
saying.
preparing for a blob to
there will be
overtake
a big
everything.
blob.
So when you were like 3, you're like, I'm going to send some bacteria up into space and it's going to mutate and it's going to come back down and try to take over the world. And then I'm going to have to contain it. Like, that's really fucking weird for a 3-year-old.
Or, yeah.
I'm gonna die in the sewer.
Now the end game. My question is after they defeat the blob and it's turned into all those weird little crystal cubes or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
They said, let's get it over to so and so's freezer immediately.
Yeah. So what did they do? Like, is this? Yeah. What do they do with it? They bury it in Antarctica.
So
you do what you did with Jack Frost and you bury it.
Yes.
here's
I mean, they did kind of Jack Frost him.
Because here's my question: your safety of your town or whatever need be is contingent that whatever freezer that you're putting on,
Yes,
putting
stays
it in.
frozen.
See, I assume that they were like, let's just get it over there and right now before it thaws out.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
And then we'll give it to the military
I'm really,
later.
really hoping that wasn't their long-term plan.
That's what I'm wondering, because if that's their long term plan, he's like, you got to have like generators on that thing so it never goes out of power.
Yeah, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
like, no, we need this out of our town. Like, we need this on the other side of the country. Like, just we don't want it as in our
I
town.
hope.
Like with
It
you,
ate
Paul-
a lot of us.
Like with you, Paul, I'll be like, send it somewhere cold, send it to Antarctica. So
Yeah.
You call the 800 number on the side of that satellite thing, and you have them come get it.
But chances are it might get lost in transit and end up at a
It
medical
ends up
facility.
in Jersey somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then it ends up in the atmosphere. See, this is just how these things happen.
This is our government.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't know. I liked Meg, but I don't know. Shawnee Smith just seemed underutilized in this. Like, I don't know. Her character seemed weird to me.
The thing that I didn't like about her character is they made her too whiny.
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of did. She definitely had. It almost seemed like it was a struggle between her, like in despair the whole time or something. Because she's like, well, Paul died, and now this, and like, but she's like the hero also.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a weird, like, that characters, like, at times she was definitely the hero. Like, all right, she's gonna try and save the kids and this and that.
She's gonna push
like,
that guy's melted arm off that bag so she can take it and go explode this thing. Not care that he's asking for help.
That was played by Noble Craig as well. I know we've mentioned him before, but he was a Vietnam veteran that in Vietnam lost both legs, one arm, and one of his eyes. So he has played lots of different zombies and creatures throughout horror.
Missing arms, yeah.
So yeah, he was the one who was like, "Help me!"
Yeah.
Like all because I mean it works.
She was like, "No, I got shit to do."
"Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any change." Like,
I was
what?
like, it's too late for you. Sorry.
Yeah, I just needed your stuff.
I'm not the bomb. Please help me.
You might be exploded in a minute, so that's to look forward to.
You're already melting. I can't really do this.
Woo! And thanks.
I think the other thing about Shawnee Smith in this movie is because I think just watching it and knowing her now and knowing, you know, she's been in a million things and like how great she's been in and everything. I think watching a movie like this, like early in her career, and be like, you're so underutilizing her.
Yes.
Yeah. They underutilize a lot. Like we said, like Jeffrey Dumont dies so early on. Like you barely get any of him.
Yeah, but you're still like, you're looking back at like, I don't know what else he did during those times or how well known he was as an actor.
Maybe
So, I don't
that's
know.
true.
We're thinking back today's standards for these actors back then. Like
I wonder-
Kevin Dillon, I'm like, you're just the same person back then as you are now. Like,
Yeah.
you're
You really
just,
haven't changed. You've got a better hairstyle, but that's about it.
You really couldn't get any worse. I don't know, man. Like you're just
It was a glorious mullet, Paul.
you're just all the way from Jersey, from Karate Kid's mom.
Yes.
Weren't they from Jersey? I think too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're from Jersey.
Beautiful.
It's curly and just flow in
Luscious.
the wind. And
Yeah.
just to see that just flow in the wind while he jumped the bridge thing or whatever.
Or when he was in the sewer running around in his bike.
Yes, I love when they explode the manhole or whatever when he uses the what's that thing
Again,
called?
why didn't
Missile?
that do any damage to the sewer?
I know it just hit the.
It hit the thing
The
and
thing.
exploded the truck like completely. But I'm like, there's no damage, and especially the fact that he just reached his arm in there and held it, and then shot the rocket thing. I'm like, your arm would have like gotten crushed, or like there would have been some damage to the sewer in there, man. Like,
Not just that though, but you're in what is it? An enclosed space in the sewer. Goodbye to your eardrums.
Oh, I know. When she
Yeah.
covers her ears, I'm like, oh, honey.
just everyone comes out, they're fine.
I know they literally crawl out of the hole that was just on
walk
fire.
out. Yeah, we're
Like-
good.
They're not even burned. They can still hear. It's like, oh, I know this is movies.
See, this is what's going to happen: is movies are going to make these things seem realistic, and then people are going to die trying to explode manhole covers in
I
the
know,
sewers.
yeah. I saw this on a movie once.
It takes me back to that, the Return of the Living Dead, where they said, well, they worked in the movies.
Movies lied?
Yes. And that's how I'm
Betrayed.
feeling that everybody is going to find that realization when shit does finally hit the fan. Be like, the movies did lie to us.
You know, life is way less cool in reality. Unfortunately, we're not as badass.
Yeah, there's a lot of times in movies I'm like, I would be starving at this point, and I probably wouldn't have any energy to do anything.
I know,
So,
like people
these
are
people
like,
haven't eaten in like 12,
no,
13 hours.
we have to
like,
walk here. Do you? I mean, why? I don't know.
But there's a car right there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Deputy Briggs for a little bit.
Deputy Briggs?
Where do you remember that actor from?
I don't. So.
You don't at
No.
all? All right, what about you, Saul?
I know him somewhere. I'm drawing a blank because he does have that face. So I was like, shit, I know him from something. And as soon as he mentioned it, I'm going to be like, fuck, I did not remember.
He's
that.
been in a lot of things. I will always remember him from RoboCop because
yeah, there
he
you go.
is the one that falls into that chemical and starts
There you go.
melting.
Yes, okay.
He's that actor. He was an ER. It was as a doctor, apparently. He was also one of the prison guards in Shawshank Redemption, actually.
Was he?
He was one of the prison guards. I know for sure he's one of the ones that worked on the roof when they were re-tarring the roof or whatever.
Was he
in
the
those
one?
Scenes.
Okay, now that you mention him from RoboCop, I picture him now.
Yeah,
Because I
he's
picture the same mustache.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's the same
yeah.
balding hair and like
balding hair, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the gang members in RoboCop, and interestingly enough, Prime used to have the X-rated version, And one of the scenes in there is the scene where he melts. That's one of the extended scenes that made it the X-rated version. So his death is actually a little more like gory and kind of gross in the X-rated version.
You know, I do have it, and I realize I have that version of it because I remember we talked about it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the Blu-ray that I have, it's that one.
Nice.
Do you guys ever just wish that there would be a Blob movie where it's just like the Blob wins?
Yeah.
But how do you end, though? How do you end the movie with the Blob winning?
You do the
Like, it would have to be like the Blob wins this town.
No, I
like
want the Blob
whole
wins
dog.
this continent.
Well, I would picture it as you see the space shot, and all of a sudden the planet starts turning pink.
It reminds me a lot of that Creep Show episode in season 1.
Gray matter?
The gray matter one.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same shit. I mean, it's a blob.
Yeah, it's gooey.
But then again,
It's
my
a
question would be:
growing
is
blob.
if the blob does win, then what? It eats
You know,
everything.
what is the blob going to eat after it eats everything?
Yeah,
I don't know. So what's the Blob's motive is what you're saying.
it's gonna
What's
eat.
its
after
end game?
It's just constantly eating, but at some point, if it
I would
wins, then
I would think if the blob ate everything on the planet would then revolt against it and create another ice age and kill the blob.
there you go.
Which is why we need to take global warming seriously, because it's not that we're needing to save our own asses, not the planet. The planet will be fine without us. It will get rid of us.
The planet's
Yes.
going to be like, fuck you, I'll just
It
kill you
will
guys.
get rid of us
Yeah.
to survive. The planet don't need our asses.
No. Nope.
It's like
So
you're-
the blob would stand no chance against the Earth.
yeah.
That's fair. Even
The
with
Earth, the stuff, yeah, they just all come together. The gray matter or whatever.
Yeah,
everything.
they're going to have to take on the Earth.
Yeah.
Imagine that, like fucking. That's the movie we're making. The blob wins, and there's nothing but the blob, and then aliens show up, and it's like, you dumbasses.
It's like really. It's
So like,
you
we
don't-
found this stuff.
The Blob versus the aliens.
The aliens take the blob back to their planet, and it
Nice.
just intergalactic blob.
And then
what
that's
we
how we get the stuff.
Yes.
There it is. It's a bastardized version of the blob.
Yes.
We'll throw critters in there just for good measure. The bounty hunters,
Critters.
the blob bounty hunters from.
The late 80s to the early 90s were a lot about worrying about extraterrestrial shit from
There really was. I think it was a. There's a.
the
period
50s
where
spilled into it. And
Yeah.
it really is.
it's just like aliens are coming back to eat us.
Invaders from outer space.
They're coming here to either be our friends or kill us all.
I don't know. I'm suspicious of anyone, human or otherwise. So,
Well, it's the way to live, I guess.
I mean, what are you going to do? A lot of people who weren't suspicious are no longer living. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And even think about like in ET, like when ET showed up and like they were at their house and they all had those hazmat suits. I'm like, yeah, you're all gonna die. ET gave you some weird disease. you don't know
Exactly.
about. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Elliot. You grew a third nipple and
you
your
have
butt-
space herpes
and
now.
your butt fell off.
And
So
this is what happens.
Stay away from aliens. Is all I'm saying.
I mean, they have. We can't even be around each other that
No,
close right
This
now.
is this is true. Like people can't even be around other people without bitching or.
if you see an
complaining about
alien, don't
something.
get close. Like,
And if you are an alien, what the fuck are you doing on our planet?
Right?
Because there's
Go
probably
home.
better places.
Go home.
It's
the
like, have you
universe.
paid attention to the last year or however many years of history? It's like,
I
we're-
just assumed that the last couple, like this last year, aliens have just been passing our planet. Be like, oh girl, no,
Oh fuck.
go to the next one. We'll
it's
get
like they're
gas
still,
there.
Like they're still in that phase. We'll check in another
Yeah,
year.
they fighting. Let's just keep going. Just gonna keep going to the next planet.
They created a pandemic. Oh Jesus
just-
Christ.
It's just literally a cloth you have to wear on your face, guys. Get it together. But that was The Blob from 1988.
Who recommended this one?
Al Jure, yes, again from
Okay.
Instagram. So thank you for
Thank you.
that. We also have more coming up next month for
Return
April
of April
Fools.
Fools.
Yes, Return of the April Fools. And I believe we are kicking things off with Dracula Dead and Loving It with
Yes.
Leslie Nielsen.
Yes.
I love this movie. His hair gives me life.
An emergency.
The movies I think we have planned for this are going to be fun.
Yes, they're going to be very fun. But we also have other things coming up. If you guys want more things, email us at
Things and
podcast@scarynerd.com.
stuff.
Yes.
Things and stuff. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can check us out on all the Facebooks, Twitters, and Instagrams, and Pinterest. You can find more horror entertainment news at scarynerd.com. You can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/scarynerd. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.